What's up, everybody? We've been having some technical difficulties, but we've been muscling through. Welcome to the Steve and Cimino Says Boom Show, issue number 47, where we are live with the man. Look at this guy, looking down, unhappy, tired, muscling through. How you guys doing? We're here with the man.
The boy.
We lost him.
You're there.
No,
What do we do next, Steve?
Ball.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pop XP. And before the show starts, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload awesome new content. And don't forget, if you can, make sure to share our stream on all your social media outlets. We appreciate it, and thanks for helping us grow the Pop XP channel. Oh!
Boom. Oh my God. Sorry about that, everybody. We had some technical difficulties getting things straight. Steve has to set me straight. Niall's got to set me straight. And we got the man in the house, Mr. Roy Thomas. He's got to set us straight right there. We got a couple little problems, but we're making it through and we're doing the best we can. So, hey, love us. Hey, we don't have that $1 million production, but we got Niall and the Pop XP. Niall, tell them what they need to do because, man, I don't have a clue. No way.
Well, I'll tell you what, we had to reach out to Elon Musk. We got some Starlink connection up here, getting Roy Thomas and everyone in the house. So everyone, please look below, click that subscribe button, smash that bell. This way you get notifications when we go live. We upload some awesome new content. It's going to be a great show tonight. Looking forward. I always look forward to hanging out with Roy. You can't beat it. And John and Steve, man, take it away.
All right, before I'm going to throw this over to Steve, and then we're going to keep the camera on Roy. First off, we got a lot going on, and we did our best. We did our damnedest. The screens are all messed up, but as you know, Steve looks good, Niall looks sharp, but me and Roy, we're hurting over here in our little
We're
in our shoebox right here. But to make this happen, first off, I want everybody to know that thank you for being here. We got a lot going on. We're going to do Roy Thomas's top 10 superhero or comic book costumes of all time, exclusive here, and we're not going to forget one lucky viewer right here, the Roy Thomas Adamantium edition print that we're going to go live. That Roy's going to sign live on the air for you.
That's beautiful.
On my back. He'll sign
You got a pencil?
Yeah. He'll sign it on my back.
Use a pocket knife.
Yeah, but wait, before we got into this, there's something I got to say for everybody right here. Just want to show this up close again now. Yeah. These have just come in. Roy Thomas's value stamp book, which is incredible. That look at this tomb right here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But I want
You mean tome?
What's the matter, Steve?
Tome.
Oh, okay. Whatever. I'm going to fall in a tomb. Were you kidding? But let me just tell you right now, there's something that's exclusively written here. Thank you, man. There's something that's exclusively written in here. Me, Steve, and Niall always praised Roy Thomas. Now, while I'm going to show it on Roy, and he's going to blush a little bit, Roy, look at the camera, brother. Right here.
I didn't know I was on camera. I'm in the sink here in this bathroom.
Yeah, we're trying.
In the Tucci'S room.
But something is written here that I want everybody to know. Me, Steve and Niall always brag about how awesome Roy is, but I found a little bit of information that's in this book that I did not know. But in 1999, all the fans and all the professionals in the industry had a huge vote. and they voted the best writers and the best editors and probably the best artists too.
Oh yeah, they had that too.
They had
I
two
was up in that category.
from everybody, right? Roy Thomas was ranked the number 5 most favorite comic book writer of all time.
Well, just the 20th century.
Excuse me, the 20th century, 20th century, and the number 4 editor of the 21st century.
20th.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, but we're coming into the 21st.
Yeah, I know, but I'm
Okay.
not an editor anymore.
So just wanted to tell you that I found that out today. Steve, what do you think about that?
I'm sort of confused who was the number 1 editor? What are we talking about here?
I don't remember all the people offhand. It was a Comic Buyer's Guide. Remember the Comic Buyer's Guide?
Yes.
Yeah, it was their poll. They had like one that was just fans, one that was like just professionals, then they had some other thing that was like the average of the two. I mean, they were all fairly similar. And the one that listed there was the average. I don't think it had like a huge amount of validity, but hey, I'd rather be in the top 4 or 5 in a poll than below. The other people I know that Denny O'Neil was on one or both of those lists, certainly as writer. Gardner Fox, because of all his creations, was on there. Stan was at the top of both, maybe, certainly 1 or 2. Julius Schwartz was, I think on the editor thing. Archie Goodwin, I think, was on the writing.
Jim
thing.
Shooter?
No, but Archie Goodwin was.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, exactly who it was. It was a top 10 kind of thing. It's been a while, and I haven't looked at the, at the issue of Alter Ego where I reprinted all those things. I figured, but it was kind of nice to, not because, I mean, a poll that doesn't have some of the other editors in it, people like, Harvey Kurtz was a great editor, Al Feldstein. I mean, Eisner was, Sheldon Mayer at DC. There were a lot of different good editors. So, I don't think that, it makes any sense. If maybe it was a little weighted toward those of us who've been around a while. I think the thing I was most amazed with probably was the editor thing, because I was really only had my name on as editor of the whole Marvel line for about 2.5 years, and other than that, just on my own stuff for a while. So I was kind of surprised about that, because I didn't have I had my name on some DC books in the 80s, but I just, I didn't see that
Steve
coming so much. But
Steve,
I'll take it.
Steve, tell him where he's wrong. Tell him where he's wrong. We don't want to hear. I don't want to. Put him on mute when he starts being all
modest,
be all humble.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the costumes.
Okay, just so you know, it's going to be coming almost on sale soon. This thing is beautiful.
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
nice.
I hated the Marvel value stamps, but it's a good book because I wrote an essay that tells the whole story of the thing, including how much I hated it. And they have all the stamps, and they have the page in the book that printed the stamp, and it shows the page they took it from, and like the letters page wherever it appeared on. So it's really quite a thing, sir. And then they have revivals, and there's even some stuff from an English version they had about a year before Marvel value stamps appeared in the States. Stan had tried that out in the British, the UK Marvel line, and he liked it, so he kind of shoved it down our throats. So we had I hated it because kids were going to cut up their comics and so forth, but but Stan was determined to make him do it. He was real proud of that, and I guess it worked out okay. Anyway, the book I think is good. It's from Abram Art Books, and
it looks beautiful.
And it's by Charlie Kochman and so forth, and some people there did a really wonderful job of putting the book together.
Okay, all right. Now let's get to. Oh, go ahead now.
Sorry. When is the book coming out again? There's some people asking in the chat.
It's I don't know. I just got some copies in the mail, the other day. It's coming out any day in the next few weeks for sure.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, what we're going to be doing right now, exclusive. When we're making this happen, like I said, have patience with our little unprofessionalism. I got Steve and Niall carrying us through the storm. But thank you guys. But we're going to do the top 10 greatest super comic book costumes according to Roy Thomas. Now, so Roy, as we know, has a pretty good judge of character on this stuff, but it's interesting to see if you guys have a list in your head of what you guys think, let's see how you compare to Roy. So, Roy, we're going to look at you, and we're going to start at number 10. Is going to be Niall?
Boom, boom, boom.
Hyperion. Tell us why, Roy.
Well, maybe I'm a little prejudiced since I drew the first picture ever of that costume. But there are a couple of things about it. The main thing was that the original Hyperion, of course, who was a member of the Squadron Sinister before there was a Squadron Supreme, was intended to be a one-issue and probably never repeated takeoff on Superman as a result of a kind of half-drunken bet that Denny O'Neil and I made at a party at my place back in about a year before it came out. Each of us was going to try to get the Denny O'Neil was writing Justice League and I was writing Avengers. The idea was we were going to try to sneak versions of the enemy's characters in the comics. Well, I was able to do that because Stan never paid much attention to what I did at that stage. I guess, now if DC had written a nasty letter, he'd have gotten mad, but he didn't seem to worry otherwise. I don't remember if he saw it before it went out or what. Denny kind of, I won't say he chickened out. He had a different situation in mind. He had to run things past Julie a little more closely. So he ended up with Batman's fighting with a trash can to represent Captain America and stuff, and a few things put in captions that kind of suggested a giant man or something like Thor. But I mean, he wasn't able to carry off his end of it too well. But I designed 4 characters to fight the Avengers that were in the issue. The others were Dr. Spectrum, who was a takeoff kind of on Green Lantern, the Wizard, using the old name for a new character of a Flash type, and the other one was Nighthawk, who was kind of a Batman type. But the one I was proudest of was Hyperion. First, the name. It's an old Greek god. I thought of it from a line from Hamlet, where Hamlet says of his father as opposed to the uncle, who killed him and took his place as king of Denmark. He says that was to this Hyperion to a satyr. And I always thought Hyperion just had a nice sound to it. And that seemed like a good name for a Superman type character. So what I did is just to try to keep away from that lawyer's letter, when I drew the first ever drawing of this down, which it was then sent to Sal Buscema, who penciled the issue, I made every costume line on Superman different. It suggests Superman that everything is different. The one thing that's wrong with this drawing, which is otherwise fine, is that Hyperion's cape was attached to only one shoulder, and which was quite deliberate. And that's the way it was in every story that I ever had anything to do with. They've given him 2.
This one is connected to only one shoulder.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at another picture I looked at earlier from Who's Who, or one of those Who's Who type of books, and it had them connected. I can't see it quite that clearly. I see it, but I couldn't see whether it was connected or not. Well, that's good. It's even better then. Anyway, I swiped that from an old character of the 40s called Dynaman, who was a relatively obscure character, and he had that. It's probably impractical, so he was like, we're getting caught, but I kind of like the looks of it. And the short tights, they don't have a regular belt. It has that other kind of kind of lifts up. We have more like Captain America boots and short sleeves, and and he has a little mask, and he has blonde or reddish hair. So the idea was it would suggest Superman without copying any of the exact costume lines. You know what else came close to doing that? And this was part of my inspiration in 1939 was Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel. You think about it, it looks a little like Superman, but all the lines are different. Different boots, there's no tights, his cape is short. He had that original flap with a lightning bolt. The only thing they didn't do for some reason, they gave him black hair too, instead of making him stay a blonde. Other than that, Captain Marvel was created, I think, with the exact same thought processes that I used, almost 30 years later to do Hyperion. And I just kind of liked it. I know it makes it a little bit, self-aggrandizing to list one of your own characters, but I admit it is one of the character costumes that I like the most. That nice bright red yellow.
Yeah, it looks great. Okay, number 9. We got Captain America.
That's right. Yeah, I felt a little guilty about this because, of course, Captain America was really just a copy of the Shield, the Archie or MLJ character. I mean, he looked an awful lot like him, so much so that they had to change the shape of Captain America's shield after the first issue because he would even resemble the shield more because Captain America's original shield looked like the shield's chest. But still, if anything, it was an even better costume. It came second after the one that Irv Novick and whoever designed for MLJ. But just again, it was just a wonderful way of putting these stars and stripes together. You think of just look at all the various patriotic type characters. You know, there's a Captain Freedom and there's Major Victory and there's this, there's that. You put them all up together, and except for maybe a really good drawing of the shield, I think your eye is almost always going to go to Captain America. Even if you didn't know who Captain America was, he would just have the best looking costume. That stars, the stripes, Jack. You know, the whole way that Jack did it, even giving him the white on the arms and so forth. I mean, okay, I don't know if he necessarily needed little tiny wings on his head or a big A or whatever, but the look of the whole thing is just wonderful,
There's a question, Roy.
Yeah.
Who actually really designed it? Sometimes it said Simon and sometimes it's Kirby. What?
Well, of course, I'm sure if you had asked Jack, he would have said he did. Joe said he did. Joe Simon came up with this famous drawing that Phil Simley used for the cover of one of his early conventions in New York back in the 60s. And it was a picture, it was supposedly the picture that Joe Simon drew in 1940 to show to Martin Goodman. And it says, here's the character, because supposedly Goodman asked them to create, or asked Joe, really. He wouldn't have spoken to Jack, because Joe Simon was Martin Goodman's editor. Jack was just, as far as Goodman was concerned, Jack was just this artist who had kind of come in on the deal with Simon. He didn't really realize, what he had with Kirby exactly, and never really appreciated it that much. So whether Joe actually designed the costume or whatever, maybe he did, he just brought it in and said, this is the character, and he should have a kid partner or he's going to be talking to himself all the time. And then Jack, of course, did most of the drawing in the first issue and all those early 10 issues. So, I don't know. I suppose, in a sense, if you look at character design, maybe it's a Joe Simon character. But of course, again, it's that Jack Kirby drawing as much as anything that made him what he was. All right, but you can't separate Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. It's like trying to say, what Stan did, what Jack did.
Of course.
And with Joe and Jack, it was even harder in those early days because Joe drew a lot like Jack. He wasn't as good, but once he saw what Jack was doing, he drew more and more like Jack, and they really made a nice, combination.
All right, now.
I'm sorry I'm not saying anything profound about this. You could get some 15-year-old who would probably come on and give a better analysis, but I'm just, giving my thoughts on it.
Don't worry, they're going to give you their review of your list at the end here. They're going to give a review. Okay, number 8. Roy, who's this guy?
Yeah, now this is one of the more obscure ones, but it's a favorite of mine. Another red and yellow, I guess. I like that color combination too. This is Adamantium. He only lasted 2 issues. He was designed and drawn on the cover and inside by the great Jerry Robinson, who of course had been one of the early Batman artists. And it was 1946. It was one of the first 2 or 3 characters that had the word Atom in its title. Of course, nobody knew what atoms really did, so they would call him Atom Man, and there was an Atomic Man and 1 or 2 other characters like that. But the nice thing to me is just simply the costume, and I think I have to, when I talk about the costume, I'm including the color because it was intended to always be a color costume. So, you take that costume, you put it in 2 or 3 different other colors, maybe it wouldn't look so good, but somehow I have a special connection with it too in a certain way because this is the costume that I used in 1969 to redesign Marvel's first Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel. When I had decided with issue number 17 I was going to turn Marvel's Captain Marvel into a sort of a science fiction version of the long gone and probably never coming back Fawcett Captain Marvel. So, but I wanted a new costume. I was very unhappy with the old costume, especially that green and white coloring that I had been responsible for. So I said, I'm going to do one this time. And I'm going to do it with primary colors. And I'm going to make him really look, like a great character. So I sort of traced off or freehand drew a picture that was almost exactly this cover. I think I may or may not have kept the cape on. I probably did. And it was fine. And I was all set to send it off to, in fact, the plot had gone off to Don Heck, although I don't know if he ever had the actual drawing because that wouldn't be introduced till later. But the thing is that the costume, when Gil Kane suddenly waltzed in and told Stan, I'd like to draw Captain Marvel. That's a character not going anywhere, and maybe let me take a chance at it. So next thing you know, Gil and I, who hardly knew each other up to that stage, found ourselves working together with a plot I had actually originally proposed and had already sent to Don Heck. So we yanked it back from Don Heck, gave him something else, but Gil said he'd like to. He saw that costume and he kind of basically liked it, but he wanted to change it. So the costume that is in in Captain Marvel number 17 and for quite a few issues after that is one that is it's based on Atom Man, but with some changes by Gil Kane. One of the things Gil especially wanted to do was to give him white hair, which I always liked. I was sorry when they let some later people change it back to being blonde again. Why not have white hair? He didn't look old. But anyway, it's a great costume. Maybe it's partly because it was the basis of the Captain Marvel costume, but I just think it's a great. Unfortunately, the American public didn't agree or else there were other factors because he only lasted 2 issues and then he was gone.
Oh wow! Okay, number 7. Who's Superman?
Okay, yeah. Well, in a way, Superman ought to be at the top in a way because, of course, he's the inspiration and everything else sort of came from him in terms of the costume, even if the person didn't have a cape or had a mask or this and that. But sure, but just because he's the first doesn't necessarily mean you have to think that he's the best in all ways. So again, but a lot of it is just those classic elements, which of course Superman was the first person in comic books to really use in that combination. It's that acrobat costume with the underwear on the outside, as Woody Allen said in Bananas, I always figured that later on. I figured that underwear on the outside idea. I think that was because I don't know. I think it was supposed to cover up a little. If you just had tight pants on and you were an acrobat, which is where these costumes came from. I don't know. I think maybe there was likely to be a telltale bulge or something that didn't look right, so they stuck some more underwear on there to obscure it. I'm convinced that that's the reason that they have these little ridiculous tights that they wear over their pants. Everything else, of course, by this time Superman had already evolved. Originally, I think he used to wear kind of strapped up sandals that were colored even yellow or something sometime. But by this time, except that the S was still developing, he'd really pretty much come to the costume that we know and love. It's just that the S kept developing for another couple of years. At this stage, it's still a little bit too simple to be the classic S. And and you have the logo that goes perfectly with that. But it was just a great, wonderful, simple costume, and it influenced everything since then. Directly, things like Hyperion and Captain Marvel. Indirectly, Spider-Man and Captain America and all the rest of them.
Wow. Okay, number 6. There he is.
Batman.
Batman.
Yeah, it's interesting because gray is ordinarily a pretty lousy color, for a costume. It doesn't make things stay. It's almost as bad as green and white for that Captain Marvel. But somehow or other, because he was a creature of the night, the blue, which was actually supposed to be black, I think there was a lot more black in the very early Batman. But that sort of gray and black and blue type of look with a bat, wonderful creature of the night. So guess what they did to this wonderful creature of the night? They gave him a yellow belt. That's the one thing that's wrong on Batman's costume from first to last. The only thing ever made it worse was when they put the bat in a circle on his chest. But at least that made sense. They did it for commercial business reasons because it made it possible to possibly protect a trademark if you had a circle bat. But if you just had a bat by itself, it was harder. But this is a nice angle because you don't really see the yellow belt, so it actually looks a lot better. Just a wonderful costume. The bat ears, the kind of the flailings on the whatever on the gloves, the bat flare to the cape. The whole, even that nose that kind of comes down to a point, which has an almost animalistic look to it. It's just a wonderful costume. And when you take everything else away from Bob Kane, there is the fact that admittedly in conjunction probably with Bill Finger looking over his shoulder and holding his pencil half the time. But you have this wonderful costume that Bob Kane and Bill Finger created, and you can't gainsay it. Two of the and there's a reason Superman and Batman became two of the most popular and long-lived characters of all time. They look the best. They also had good stories and good concepts at opposite ends of the superhero spectrum, but they also looked as good as any characters ever looked.
Wow, I agree. Just really quickly, Frank Miller in The Dark Knight Returns actually made a good example of the why he has the bat in circles, because it makes a target, and then I guess it was bulletproof.
Yeah.
So they would fire at that. So it was kind of good way
that makes more sense than the utility belt. A yellow utility belt. Why wouldn't that be black? I mean, the idea was he's a creature of the night. What he didn't want to draw attention to his belt, certainly. But anyway, other than that, it's a good costume.
Okay, number 5.
Roy, quickly, in your opinion, real quick before we get to number 5, who would you consider to be the all-time best Batman artist?
The best what?
Batman artist.
Batman artist.
Batman. Oh God, I don't know. I'll tell you. I'm just as. I mean, there's a picture there by Neil Adams. You can't get any better than that. I don't know. Let's see. I haven't really followed it for some years, and I didn't like the look that Frank Miller gave, like in The Dark Knight Returns. I didn't like that whole artistic approach, even though Frank is a brilliant artist. I don't know. In a lot of ways, Neil Adams, but you have to sort of say, in a way, Bob Kane, because, but in between them, probably if I were looking at stories, you know what I'd go for? I'd go for Dick Sprang. Dick Sprang did a wonderful job of taking that Bob Kane look and just putting better drawing with it and making it look kind of slicker and more professional. And I found that when I looked back at the stories that I read between the ages of 5, 10, 12, and so forth, and the stories that I remembered and where I looked at the art and so forth and liked it the best, later on I discovered most of those were by Dick Sprang.
Wow. Okay. So number 5, let's give it Dr. Fate.
Yeah. I must like yellow a lot, because here's another yellow. That's a character I didn't even, ever see until I was 10 or so. But again, the main thing that's wonderful about him, although it changes from time to time, is the helmet. The whole basic look. I mean, the amulet, the cape, the whole thing. But that is, when it's drawn right, as it was for a period in the 40s, and as I got Jerry Ordway to do wonderfully in All-Star Squadron, it's wonderful because it doesn't have a separate little crest on the top as people draw it. Even Jerry's gone back to drawing it that way now, and it just makes me wince when I see it, because otherwise Jerry does it so wonderfully. But the thing is, what was great about that, it wasn't at the beginning. At that point, I think it just rose to a kind of a point at the top. But then they got to this point where it looked just perfect. It had that little crest, but it was just two pieces. It was like there were two halves of it kind of stuck together, and there wasn't a separate little crest on the top. And it just had a wonderful fluid kind of feel. That line went up straight, then it kind of curved gracefully, like that and so forth. And it's weird because ordinarily, you don't want to cover up the hero's face completely because you don't get any expressions. But Dr. Fate was a character, humanity was not the topmost thing about that character. So even though there was a man underneath it, you didn't mind having that wonderful helmet. But again, it's a simple costume, but a lot of these costumes, one of the things that's common with a lot of these costumes is really most of them have just two main colors. There may be a third, like a little yellow trimming on Superman or that utility belt or whatever, but it's usually, Captain Marvel was mostly red and yellow because the white cape hardly showed up. Superman's red and blue. Batman's blue and gray. Atom Man was yellow and red. Captain America was sort of the exception, red, white, and blue, but that was because that came with the flag. And I think Dr. Fate, the idea again, if you had put there's a thing there'll be examples of it coming up, but when a character has too many colors in his costume, it's hard to it doesn't focus the eye. I used to refer to them in my early days as a professional, anyway, maybe even before that, as church window costumes. They look like these splashy church windows that have about 40 pieces of colored glass and all kinds of different colors, and you have to kind of step back and squint to figure out what's going on. And example of that, and one reason it wouldn't be on this thing, even though I kind of like the costume myself, would like the original Green Lantern. You got this purple mask, red shirt, green pants, purple and light green cape, and so forth. Just too many colors.
I think there's also another good example, Roy, is that Captain Ultra.
Captain Ultra, right? Well,
I was thinking of that too, Steve.
I don't remember what Captain Ultra looked like too much, but he was just intended to be one of the worst characters of all time, and obviously.
Okay, Steve, it's so funny. I was thinking of the same thing. I didn't want to bring... Okay,
the only two people on the planet Earth ever thought about Captain.
Hey, we just got a really nice super chat in, so I just want to bring that up quick. Super chat from Eric Wahlberg. Had to super chat to say, Roy Thomas, thank you so much for so many great years of Conan, Avengers, and so much more. Thanks also for supporting Stan Lee as an active participant in Marvel's creative process and storytelling.
I got a question. I think Eric Wahlberg, and thank you very much for those comments, Eric. But what is this 1999? What's he selling? Is he for sale?
No, he's giving that.
He's giving that for what?
He's giving that to the chat to the show.
Yeah. Bless his heart. I didn't know what it meant. I'm pretty ignorant of these technical things.
It's Roy's first super chat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. He couldn't afford $20. That extra penny would have broke him.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'll take it back now. I'm sorry.
Hey, okay. So we're going to come into the top 4 now. So far, Steve and Niall, what do you think of the list so far? You first, Steve.
Well, you started off with Hyperion, and yeah, you can't go wrong. I slathered over Hyperion for many years.
Yeah.
So I just having Hyperion there is magnificent itself. Of course, Bats is a wonderful costume. Soups had to be there, but I was I think the surprise I had never seen Atoman, and so that was the same sort of color design as Firestorm. So sort of very educational.
What about you now?
I'm in agreement, with what you've selected so far. I have to say though, the next one is the one I'm excited about because it's in my.
I forgot what it is.
Number 2.
We'll learn together.
Number 2.
Okay, so number 4, Niall, who we got?
Oh,
the Black Terror.
The Black Terror. Yeah, well, I have to like this one. I have swiped it a billion times. When I was a kid. It's wonderful because it's black, and of course you got the 2-color cape, but the main thing is the black with the skull and crossbones. It's like a walking pirate ship, and he wasn't much of a character. I mean, he just slugged people and so forth. You could hardly even tell what his powers is, or sometimes he seemed like he was super powerful. Sometimes he was almost Superman. Sometimes he was barely Batman. But he looks wonderful, and it was really the idea of the skull and crossbones on the costume and that black trimmed in yellow. I swiped that when I was about 10 years old. I swiped it pretty closely with a slightly different mask for a character called Phantom Man that I made up stories about. And of course, a little more professionally, back in the 80s, I took that basic costume and moved it around and moved the skull up to become the head instead of just on his chest, and moved up the crossbones, and he became the basis for Mr. Bones, who was the character. This is the second drawing ever done of Mr. Bones, and it's not by Todd McFarlane, who is the guy who was the third guy to draw Mr. Bones, and actually the first one to do him in a story. This is by Mike Macklin, who was one of the 2 original artists of Infinity. He penciled and inked it from the first drawing ever done of Mr. Bones, which was by me, which is either happily or unhappily long since lost. I know that what I drew was almost exactly, except for the fact that it was drawn terribly, was exactly the costume that Mike drew for the picture, except that he moved those. I think he moved the line on the thing, gave him these kind of high pirate boots, so the yellow is around the thigh instead of down below. And I thought that was a real improvement. I thought that was great. So I printed this in. And that's my little lettering up there saying Mr. Bones, that you can barely read. That's, but that's the pencil ink of Mike Macklin. It's really a wonderful drawing. And again, it has those because I've always said that I always felt like one mistake I made when I was talking with Mike Blug about the Ghost Rider character and everything was that I should have had him have a crossbone symbol on his chest to go with that blazing skull. And for some reason I didn't, even though I'm a big believer in chest symbols for these guys whenever possible. But I let that one slip by me, but I didn't do it on Mr. Bones and so forth. So I'm real pleased with that look, because but it's really the Black Terror just turned into, just gone to its, natural end. I don't know if anybody else would feel it that way, but I just felt that the Black Terror was really a wonderful costume, even if not much of a character
Oh, wow.
to go with it.
Okay, coming into the bottom three now, the top three. So number 3 is one of my favorites, I got to admit.
Yeah.
Now, let's show it.
I'm with you. One of my top.
Oh wow, yeah, again, I already said part of it. The costume, it's Superman with all these little changes that hopefully we're going to keep him from being sued, which it didn't. But you got the rope to hold the cape, the short little cape. Somebody wrote once in the early days of fandom, maybe it was Dick Lupoff in his Big Red Cheese article back in 1960, but that the original costume that had that flap, which Jerry Ordway brought back when he was doing the Power of Shazam series, that it had a look of, I don't know, this kind of late 19th century, Middle European uniform. And you were thinking of things like, what was it? What was the musical, The Student Prince, and things like that. You just sort of felt like it was some Middle European costume out of The Prisoner of Zenda or something. For some reason, after only a handful of issues, they dropped the flap idea. Otherwise, they kept the costume pretty consistent from then on. But again, you've got those, I don't know what you call them, epaulets or whatever they are on his arm. And has anybody ever seen that on a real military uniform? I guess it resembles military decorations of some sort, but I'm not quite sure what it was supposed to be. Anybody know? Anybody have any ideas?
No,
I do not.
Yeah,
But it's a wonderful looking.
I'm still blinded by the fact that I think yellow and red is the universal color of superheroes.
Even Superman is trimmed in yellow. Yeah.
Well, I guess but I have to. The thing I will say is that is the greatest cape.
Yeah. Oh, I have to tell you, one honorary thing that isn't on here, because it isn't exactly a costume and yet it amounts to it, that would go with what you just said about the yellow and red, the Human Torch. When he's aflame, not that underwear, but when he's aflame, and especially in certain stories, and during the 50s, I thought it looked even better when Burgos and Ayers were doing it, he would be red and there would be the yellow aura around him. And to me, that was the epitome of the way the Human Torch should look.
I know,
and that's yellow and red. It's basically a costume, even though it's not.
Speaking of yellow and red,
I know it's not really significant, but
what do you got on there?
Well, of course. I mean, I'm
but there's another yellow and red, the Flash. That Flash costume, the 1956 Flash costume, would be in the next 5 or 10 too, I think. Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. What were you going to say?
The funny thing is that years and years ago, when we were first organizing Torpedo Comics, John asked me, "Hey, we need a logo. We need something." And I was like, "It has to be red and yellow. It has to be red and yellow." So our first logo, all our colors at conventions were red and yellow. It took 10 years for us to change it over, but red and yellow is universal eye-catching appeal.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really think about all the red and yellow in those 10 until I started seeing them flash on the screen, because it wasn't conscious or anything like that. It's just that a lot of good costumes have that. And the funny thing is, you remember, virtually none of those costumes were ever designed to be those particular colors. I mean, Black Terror probably, had the dark in there, but when C.C. Beck drew Captain Marvel, who knew whether that was to be necessarily, red and yellow? They could have made it, some other colors and so forth, and Superman too. He wouldn't have had to. You see some of those foreign editions of Superman. Have you seen some of the weird color schemes that in the early days they would put on him in European comics? It would be entirely different. It would give a whole different look to the character. And any of these characters could look so much different. Even Captain Marvel, you change it a little bit. You Captain Marvel Jr. with the red, yellow, and blue. So it's Colors are very important. It's kind of funny because I'm not exactly colorblind, but when they have those things where you're supposed to see one colored number against another background, I usually can't do those at all. They just look, I can see, like I can see the red and yellow there, but but it's kind of funny because here I'm giving all these notes and so forth, and I'm actually, partly colorblind.
Okay, number 2. Ooh.
Okay. Well, no yellow on that one, but it's still, it has the other thing is primary colors. I know that Spider-Man actually started out being red and gray. It was sort of a purple gray for the first year or so, but eventually it settled down to sort of blue or bluish purple or whatever. But again, forgetting about the coloring, no matter what coloring that costume had, it was just going to be a standout. And Steve Ditko did just, if you could ever use the term genius for the idea of designing a costume, you couldn't use it any better than with Spider-Man. It was just like it's sprung there. It was probably one of the first things he thought of. There's no indication he ever drew it, particularly different, or that Stan had made a lot of changes. But there he is.
I think that, in my opinion, I think that's the greatest costume.
I wouldn't really argue. With you. I don't remember who number 1 is. So, but yeah, and of course, it's got the webbing. Adds a lot to it and so forth. That's why I never liked Deadpool, because he just looks like Spider-Man without the webbing. I like the characters, okay. I just meant the costume. I think it was too close to Spider-Man. But it's just a wonderful costume. You got the light of the eyes in there, and it's just there's nothing to say about it except it's just one of the great superhero costumes of all time.
Of all time, absolutely. Okay, we are going to go to number 1, the number 1 greatest Roy Thomas, not superhero, but comic book costume of all time. This has been, Roy can draw him better than anybody else, but for some reason they don't ask for it as much as he wants. But
I don't remember.
Ready, Niall? Give it to him.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot. Yeah. This is just it's a personal thing. This is this is one of those church window costumes that I talked about. It's got too many colors in it. It's not a great costume as far as catching the eye, and maybe that's the reason that Hawkman never quite rose to the heights of the other characters. But to me, it's not just the costume, because I started reading that comic almost exactly the same time that Joe Kubert came on as the artist in 1945. Before that, he was very well drawn by Shelley Moldorf and all that. But I started at the same time as Kubert without knowing that, and there was something about that book. There's an excitement. The reason I did this cover is one of my favorite comic covers of all time. I think it's probably inspired by the Sistine Chapel. You've got those. They're overlapping, but Hawkman's hand is reaching out toward only past the gun, almost the same way Adam and God are reaching out toward each other in Michelangelo. So it's a nice composition. But the main thing is just the look of it. The wings don't look like wings, but they've got a fantastic character of their own, which is carried over from Bulldog later, Kubert being the more wing-like. But it's probably not one of the great costumes anybody could be. It's my personal favorite, and it's all because the wings are okay, but it's all because of one thing, which you can see fairly well. It's all the mask, as it was designed by other artists, but especially as Joe Kubert was drawing it about this time, 1946, when it had those wonderfully flared wings, that beak. The interesting thing was most characters, they look, that's Shelley Moldorf's version. It looks very nice. It's a swipe from Alex Raymond or Howard Foster there. Howard Foster. It's very nice. But when Kubert came along, he gave it he gave that beak that kind of hook. It has the upward lower. There's even like little tongue sticking out in the middle. It doesn't exactly fit on any human face, but when you actually try to get it on, but it looks so good that it always excited me, because that face, that hawk beak, open and curved and rapacious, it never looks relaxed. It never looks quiet. It always looks like it's ready to go for your throat, if you're a villain. And that's why the Hawkman. I could see that I'd probably be in the minority there as far as feeling that's one of the great, but that's a personal favorite anyway.
Look at
It's
that.
the only one it's the only one of the church window costumes that would probably be anywhere up there in my favorite group anyway.
Okay. 1 through 10. So, okay, Niall.
Address all hate mail to what's the name of this show?
Hawkman. Hawkman number 1.
All right. Well, this is my top 10 too. What would you guys put on there that I didn't? I mean, you mentioned. What would you add?
What would I was just
you might like some of the same ones, but what else would you put on? What other characters?
I actually really enjoy Wolverine's costume. He's in my top 10.
You know, a costume I love so much is I love Reversed Flash. I love, once again, you got the yellow and red.
Was that Professor Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah, the yellow and red, yeah.
The reverse Flash. Yeah. Like, I just think that costume is so...
Yeah. Well, I liked the 1956 Flash. I fell in love with it when I saw it, even though I was, sort of missed the old Flash costume. But that was another almost church window.
It's another beautiful red and yellow costume. But I think Roy, I think you made a terrible mistake on your list. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of letters, and there's going to be, I think the FBI and the CIA are going to get involved.
I'm sorry I left Ant-Man off there, but who are you thinking of?
He's getting the Squirrel Girl
on there is criminal.
Huh?
Nova.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay.
Okay. I know we gotta wrap before we're gonna go into our I know we're a little late coming into this, but before we go into our what is it? Our little our raffle, our free giveaway. I want to just show people something really extravagant here. That this has finally come along. I just want people to know the Roy Thomas Adamantium edition print of Avengers 57, and this is absolutely beautiful. For anybody that can see this up close, I even made sure that diamond and that little gem right there on the top of his head is foiled, and you'll see it glowing in the light. It's just absolutely super quality paper, Roy Thomas, and more to come. Marvel logo licensed of all Roy's characters. So we got that. Now, here is the big one right here. Niall, one more time, up close. This right here. These are very hard to come by because they are in limited quantity of the Roy Thomas Adamantium Edition 181 print. Now these, like I said, very wanted, very desired, and we sell them like crazy. And we don't have a lot of them, right, Roy? So
I got one.
Yeah, I only gave Roy one, just one.
So and it cost me.
And no, I didn't charge.
He had to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have it right here. So Niall, do you have you do this? You talk about this.
Well, first off, anyone in the chat right now that hasn't typed in hashtag Hulk 181, do so now. I'm gonna bring up the screen. I'll give you all a couple seconds if you haven't typed it in yet. Again, you're going to be winning that print signed live by Roy. So if you do win and you are in the live chat currently, we are going to ask you what you'd like it to say. And then John will make sure it gets sent out to you.
Yeah, and I want to say once again, I want to apologize to people out there how we're a little unprofessional today because of we had a little in Roy's house. Ultron is among us, so
I live in the negative zone. Is basically what he's trying to say.
Yes, exactly. He does, and we're fighting the nihilist and Ultron.
Your picture held up. We had a couple moments where it sounded like we were in a tin can, but it didn't last too long. But
yeah, we couldn't tell from this end. And I want to apologize if I somebody seems to be looking down my nose like a Gil Kane shot here. It's because I have my bifocals on and at the distance that the phone is, in order to be able to see anything quite as clearly, I have to sort of look through the bifocal part. So if I look like this way, it's not that I'm turning up my nose.
Roy, I don't even know if they can see us. We're all
That's all right.
They can see you. They can see you. All right, gentlemen. I'm going to do the honors. I'm going to click the draw button, and we'll see who the winner of the print is.
All right. Roy's going to...
All right.
Nelvis Eats.
Nelvis Eats. Nelvis
That-
Eats.
Is that a name or a description? What is that?
That's his YouTube
That's his-
handle.
That's his
YouTube
handle.
account.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All
Fine.
right. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. Now, Nelvis, why don't you type? Do you want your name, or do you want Nelvis Eats, or you just want Roy to sign it straight up? What do you want?
Wow, he says. Excellent. All right. So there's usually just a few second lag. So Nelvis, if you'd like, if you don't want to give any of your personal information over on the air, you can either type in what you want in the chat to be signed to you, or you can message me, message the Pop XP on Facebook, on Twitter or Instagram with the information that you're looking for. We'd also, you're going to need to send us your address so we can ship this to you as well. So he says, my name would be great. Well, we need to know your name. Which Nelvis, maybe that is his first name.
Maybe his first name is Elvis.
We got the name Nelvis, so we can actually see Roy writing it down for you, so you see this personally.
Is this going to be
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what we'll do is Nelvis will reach out to me via Instagram, and he'll send me a message. And then what I'll do, John, is I'll just forward that over to you guys, and you guys can sign it.
Okay, so then we'll just sign it. Okay, we won't do it
Yeah.
live on the air. We'll just sign it to him when he's got it.
Yeah, I'll check my Instagram, see if anything came over yet. But what we'll do is once I get that, I'll Nelson is his name. Nelson. Nelson.
Well, congratulations, Nelvis.
Well, wait. What did you say it was? Did he say his name?
Yeah, his name is Nelson.
Nelson.
All right.
N-E-L-S-O-N.
Should I sign it, Nelson? You want me to sign it?
He said, do it live. Do it live.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Wait, hold on, Roy. Let's see if we can.
To Nelson in my name. So
Yeah.
like I used to do.
Yeah, to Nelson and then your name. Here we go.
Yeah, like Admiral Nelson.
I like Nelvis better. There we go. There you go.
There it is, Nelson.
Yeah, this is nice. This is the first one that I got to see of this myself. It's beautiful with all the foil and the silver shining back and everything. It's really very nice. I'm very impressed. John worked real hard on this.
Thank you so much. These are direct from Marvel. Awesome, Nelson.
Right.
Thank you very much. And check it out. You get it for free. Hopefully you don't bring it at a convention. Someone's going to jump you. You're going to need Steve for backup for that. You wouldn't believe how many people are asking me for that to send that, like to do mail order. No, the only way to get those is you got to come to a convention and see Roy there, and we'll get them for you. So, okay, here's our live event. Thank you very much, Niall. Steve, parting words here.
You know, what a great show. And you know what I love the most is the fact that it was personalized. You know, I would have actually had tears pouring from my eyes if you had chosen Deadpool's costume as number one. The good thing is that, you know, it's definitely very personal. Now the whole world knows that when it comes to costumes and Roy Thomas, it's Hawkman.
Yeah.
And Niall, what about?
And actually, we got another super chat here from Sean Ferris for $20. Thank you, sir. I tweeted to Pop XP. Roy, do you know why Tucca drew Cap's wings like this? And then he says the extra
Like
penny
what?
for Eric.
Like what?
Sure. I'm not sure. So it just says, do you know why Tucca drew Cap's wings like this?
And hold on, Roy, before you give the answer, he has the extra penny is for Eric. Remember when you talked about that guy?
Oh, yeah,
said
yeah.
So
Oh, good. They have that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, Sean,
So
that's good.
that was fantastic. He gave for the 1999. He gave
Yeah. I don't know what it looked like, but the thing is, everybody, you know, draws these things just like Kubert's Hawkman and other people's Hawkman. Everybody draws things certain way. The lightning bolt on Captain Marvel would get a little bigger or smaller. You know, the S on Superman evolved. You know, it was like Jack Burnley who gave him that the kind of S that became the Earth 2S. You know, everybody has his own way of drawing it. Maybe I seem to think of Tucca as having, I don't know, maybe they stuck up a little more. But, you know, if you look at any number of drawings in the 40s, those wings, sometimes they're like little tiny things at the head. Sometimes they seem to flare up and stand up several inches. And every artist would sort of, a character really is always a Rorschach test, for some of them in particular, like Batman, are a Rorschach test in almost every way. But at the very least, the things that you emphasize, the costumes or the way you draw them and so forth, whether it's just seeing a drawing like Gil Kane did with my drawing of Captain Marvel and said and wanted to change it, a costume is a kind of a personal statement, in a way. And the characters,
when it comes to wings, we have to acknowledge
the characters too. So
I think we have to acknowledge Frank Robbins. He did the biggest wings ever on Cap's head.
Who did?
Remember Frank Robbins?
Who?
Which one, Steve?
Frank Robbins.
Oh, Frank Robbins. Oh, he's talking about Frank Robbins. When Frank Robbins, he drew.
When he drew Captain America? Did he? Yeah.
Oh. He did the biggest wings ever.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
all right. Well,
and,
all right. Probably did.
Nelvis each just sent us $20.
Wow.
Appreciate it. There's no message. I don't know, Nelvis, if you have a question or anything that you want to ask specifically to Roy, please do.
Hey, Nelvis, that was actually free for that print, so don't worry about it. Look, I'm not going to send Steve after you. Don't worry about it. Okay. Hey, well, is any more left now? Because we can get out of here.
No more super chats. That's it. And let's see. Here we go. Brian says, looking forward to seeing Roy and John in 4 weeks in Kansas City. Great show. Thanks.
Yeah, we're happy to be there. That's sort of the other end of my home state, Missouri. So it's always glad to be there. At least one of my two sisters will probably be there, and a couple other people I know. So it'll be kind of nice, like old home week there.
Yeah, that's going to be a big. That's going to be a big one.
That's the Planet Con there. That's what's it? The middle of the month, the middle of
March.
Of March, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get, like I said, sorry about a little of the technical difficulties, but we did the best we can. Niall, Steve, thank you guys always so much for cleaning it up. We're doing the best, and Niall always coming through, trying to pull us out of the negative zone. What's that thing that Reed Richards threw that guy, like in issue 51? Wasn't there something, the guy that was pretending to be Ben Grimm, and he threw something at him? Remember?
God, that's a terrible question. Oh. I remember.
Remember that? Do you remember that one?
No, I never got past the ultimate.
I think I'm incorrect because didn't they throw him out? Didn't the thing throw him free? I forget. Yeah. Is that how it happened?
Yeah. Well, some of these things are pretty bad. The ultimate nullifier.
I should know that. All right, I will punish myself considerably.
Yeah, Steve.
Not knowing.
I'm disappointed in you too, Steve, because you usually come through when I forget. Okay, but Steve, we got Mighty Mystic Mjolnir ready to go. Thanks everybody for joining us live. Roy is going to be back for our 50th episode, which is going to be coming soon, and we got a big one for you there. So thank you for everybody. Roy, what do you say to the people out there?
Excelsior. That's okay for somebody else. I'll give it a try. See if it works for me.
Steve, give it to us.
All right. Thank you so much, Roy. Boom.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on Pop XP. If you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content. Also, don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow us at the Pop XP and over on Instagram at the Pop XP. Thanks again everyone, and we'll see you soon.